Hello. Um, I don't even really know what I want to be talking about here. I know the gist of it, but I suppose I can just speak for myself here. But you can feel the heat in the country rising, and I'm not talking about the summer sun, right? You can feel the tension begin to boil, right? You can feel that in the interactions with people. They might be a little bit more aggravated than usual, um, and it can get to you because whether you're playing ignorant or whether you're deep into this stuff and you're trying your best to wrap your mind around what's going on and you're trying to understand motivations and you're trying to answer questions that you can't possibly have an answer to, what you're left with is yourself fundamentally. Because we have so many views and beliefs of what we think is happening. And we also might have the belief that if enough people understand this, problem goes away. But what we lack is definitive proof. There's plenty of evidence out there, and you know the difference between evidence and proof, right? So there's plenty of evidence out there to nearly suggest any number of things, any number of motivations on or behind what is going on. But very rarely do we get our hands on definitive proof that we could show to someone and say, here you go. There's no questioning that. There's always room for interpretation. And with any good criminal, if you're covering your tracks, you always want plausible deniability with something, okay? And there's plenty of that too. So what you're left with is your own discernment. How you make sense of the world, how you interpret the information that is coming to you. And a lot of that can be based on, number one, your fundamental nature, the ground of your own being, right? So who you are, what you brought into this world as you, your nature, your personality, your character, whatever that is, right? And so it's important to understand the streams that pool together to make up you as you are, right? And there's a few of them I want to talk about. So one of them is time. We're creatures. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger spoke of the idea of being just thrown into existence. And I like that because it is what has happened to each and every one of us and will continue happening to people so long as they're born. That you're thrown into this world. The question is open to interpretation, or the answer is open to interpretation as to whether you asked for this in some sort of pre-birth cosmos, okay? But either way, as existence goes and as we can watch it and see it and probably remember it to varying degrees, we're thrown into this world. We just become aware that we're here. And for many, many years, we've no idea how it was that we came to be here. And there's a large chunk of our life that happens that nearly not outside of our awareness, but outside of our ability to self-reflect on it and to recall it into consciousness, right? So like the first few years of life, how many memories have you got from that? Probably one or two, right? But as it goes on and on and on, just say you hit 20, 30, and on and on, larger chunks of your life become accessible to your memory. And they are loaded with emotion as you look back and reflect. And as your years climb in age, the amount of your life that you can look back on and remember grows also. And you can get the old blast and nostalgia for better days, and you hear it said that you're just looking at things with rose-tinted glasses. You're not. You're looking at things through the lens of your own emotion and memory, okay? And that colours your experience in this world that you can recall. So what's the point of me talking about this? Because we're also bound to the present. Many of us, and I think a lot of us, have been duped into believing that we always need to be doing something in the present in order to entertain ourselves or distract ourselves From what? From ourselves, from our own memories of life and our own contemplations of life and our own concerns and worries and wishes and ambitions for the future. So we have the emotional past, we have the practical present, right? So there's things that I can do in the present. There's nothing I can do about the past in terms of changing anything that has happened, okay? You can develop your relationship with your past, but in terms of changing anything, unless you're in some sort of Marvel movie or, I don't know, Back to the Future or something, well, you get my point. So we have the emotional past, the practical present, and I suppose the fantasy of the future, right? So what is it that we envisage or we envision as a desired outcome in the future? So we're kind of pulled in three directions. And we're also grounded in the reality that all we have, objectively, I suppose, is the present moment. So we can be swarmed with loads of different emotions. We can have a nostalgic, longing feeling towards the past, a helpless feeling in the present, or even a defeatist feeling of what's the point in anything. And then in the future, we can hope for a lovely future, or we can be in total dread about what's coming. Okay? That's a lot for people to be taking on, and not even taking on because it's happening to you regardless of whatever. You know? So, and that can crumble people because this is difficult. You know? I feel the weight of this thing every day, and it's incredibly hard. Like it's very hard. But such is the life that we have at the moment, and such is Ireland as we have it at the moment, that we're in difficult waters here, okay? We're in difficult times. And I suppose the point of me talking about this here, is that one of the worst feelings for a human being is hopelessness or helplessness. That in the present, I'm helpless. I don't feel like I can do anything. And I'm hopeless about the future based on my current predicament, right? So there's a few bases then that we can cover. So we're social creatures, we're emotional creatures. We get a charge off of human interaction. Some people like more of it, others like only a little bit, and then they need to retreat out of that, right? But there's nourishment involved in that. You know, it defeats the loneliness, and it can make you feel less isolated. So I would say that if you're feeling hopeless, because hopelessness is linked with heart conditions, and I suppose probably anyone watching this, I don't need to stress the point of where we are and health scares and health issues that are dominant at the moment, right, following on from the last few years. So the feeling of hopelessness, a sustained feeling of hopelessness or depression, has massive issues with your heart, or can cause massive issues with your heart, right? Like, and we know it figuratively, like, so he died of a broken heart, right? Meaning he died feeling lonely or feeling helpless or hopeless, right? We understand this kind of intuitively. So what can we do to assure ourselves that we're not putting insurmountable stress and pressure on ourselves? One of the things we can do is, instead of carrying so much, you can call it negative emotion, call it stress, we can release that in some way. And I suppose the easiest way of releasing that, maybe not for all people, is to speak with someone about it. Just talk to a friend, talk to someone. And if you don't have anyone, write. Left to right, right? But write your thoughts. Or better still, I suppose, if you're, a lot of people aren't comfortable with this, Irish people, I would imagine, probably more than most, record yourself talking. You don't even have to listen back to it, but just record yourself talking. Just go on a rant, and no one ever has to hear it. You can delete it and it's gone. So, assuming it's not gone up into the cloud somewhere, right? Whatever, that's a different conversation. So talk to someone. That deals with your emotions to a degree. It deals with the social element of not feeling like you're lost in the woods on your own, right? And that will help. It helps alleviate some of the stress and maybe light a little bit of a light in what is nearly perpetual darkness at this stage, right? And I suppose it helps with the struggle of what's going to be coming down the line. Okay, so instead of worrying and panicking and losing yourself all in what's going on in the outside world, get to know yourself a little bit better by speaking with people. I heard a great one before. It's like, you don't know what you think about something until you hear yourself say it. And I've held on to that because it's a lovely quote and it's a lovely message and it's a bit of wisdom. And I think there's practical value to that as well, of hearing yourself say something. Okay, like there's a reason when people start talking about stressful things that they buckle, they break, and they cry, right? The social ego cracks a bit and they might cry or they might get really emotional about it because you don't know how you feel about something until you hear yourself say it, right? So sharing that kind of stuff with friends or sharing that stuff with yourself can be helpful, right? And the other thing then is, you might be of the persuasion that things are going to get incredibly darker. I think they're already dark enough, but there's always room for more darkness. That you might think that things are going to get really dark. What can you do in the present moment? Because you can fall into the hole of just dwelling on it and dwelling on it and dwelling on it and getting frustrated with people because they don't see it, they don't want to see it, they don't want to talk about it, they're not interested. All that stuff. So to give yourself a bit of confidence in yourself and a little bit of power, a little bit of strength, you can develop a good relationship with the future. So what is the worst possible outcome I'm imagining could come from what's going on now? Here it is. I'm after writing it out. I've painted it or drawn in front of me, and this is what I see. Okay. Is that happening right now? No. Right. So what can I do to be a little bit more prepared to meet that, should that eventuality come? Okay. And then also look at the one that you want to create. Because we pour so much energy and attention into the darker sides of living that we fail to use the other part of ourselves, which is the imagination. It's probably the first thing to come online in a mind or in a child, right? Their imagination. And then school tends to stifle that because it places so little value on it. It's not about what you can imagine and what you can create. It's about what you know and what you can repeat. So I think, different conversation again, but I think largely what we're dealing with here is the general apathy, is a lack of imagination on people's parts, on our parts as a whole. So along with preparing practically for the horrors that might come in the next few months or years, we also need to have a vision of what we would like to replace that with. Because otherwise, just say that we strike the final blow and we destroy evil for the time being, right? Then what? Because you've been spurred on and motivated by needing to overcome this thing and ruin this thing and get the better of this thing. That energy may not go just because you've won. So that has to get poured or channeled into something else. And I think that needs to be channeled into a better society. Something we can create that is better than the thing that we don't like at the moment. Right? So have a chat with people, get to know yourself, get to listen to yourself, get to know what you really feel about things and what you can actually show. So there's a difference between what I believe to be the case and what I can prove to you to be the case. So put pencil to paper and start building them things, right? Because you'll feel a little bit better about it. It'll also help you articulate things a little bit finer, in a finer manner, right? Which can lead to less frustration when you're talking about people, because you're able to go point by point by point by point with your things. You're not dealing out of an intense, super emotionally charged evaluation of what you're seeing in the world. You're dealing with something from point to point. I believe this because I've seen this happen and then this happen, and that's why I believe these two things are linked. Can you see that? No. Grand. Or yeah, I can. And then build on from there, right? So as much as I'm not trying to suggest that we should take our eye off the ball in terms of what's going on in the world or what's going on in Ireland. We say the world because it's a world thing at the moment, right? But we also need to lend a little bit of time towards ourselves and towards developing ourselves. Because the psychologically immature, stunted individual is easy to manipulate because he hasn't a clue, right? So get to know what it is that we know, or what we think we know, right? And also get to understand what we don't know, things that we can't show to someone in a point by point basis. We just have a feeling about it, right? Or an intuition about what it is, but we can't build a case to show to someone. Okay, so we all have the little topics and subjects that we're interested in, that some are stronger in and some others that we're not that strong in at all. We have time to develop those things alongside pointing out the horrors that are going on in the country. Okay, so I suppose that's probably it, and to a large degree as well, I just blown off my own little bit of steam by talking about that, or thinking out loud even, because some days are a little bit heavier than others, but we continue on. Where there's life, there's hope. Another bit I learned along the way. From other people. You take things from other people, and sometimes you don't actually realise how far or how deep that thing is stuck until maybe that person is dead, or maybe you've stumbled into a scenario in life where that bit of wisdom that you kind of barely retained is exactly what's needed at the moment, right? So have a good Sunday evening and stay strong, stay healthy, get as prepared as you can, and make connections.